some dare call it conspiracy.
Welcome to the Some Dare Call It Conspiracy podcast, hosted by Brent Lee and Neil Sanders. After nearly 20 years exploring the world of conspiracy culture, we are taking our guests and listeners on a guided tour of the rabbit hole. Our mission? To discover where the truth lies.
And hello, initiates. Welcome back. Now, we've had some people on this podcast of ours. We've had authors, journalists, battle rappers, film directors. And I gotta say, this is our very first time to have a cult leader and head of state, King Danny the First, also known as Danny Wallace. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. First of all, Brent Lee, my old enemy.
The nemesis.
I'm sorry, you and I have never been enemies as far as I know, but I was very surprised to find out that recently, I had been your enemy, Brent.
You have indeed.
Was this off the back of the Conspiracies thing on Sky One? Was it on BBC? Or
exactly that, Sky One. Taking the piss out of the owl buildings.
Yes. This was it was a shock to me to learn that I had enemies, enemies anywhere. But when I first got in touch with you, which I did, a while back, it was very funny to me that you wrote straight back in a very lovely way. And quite apart from the cult leader thing, quite apart from me starting my own country, yes, you'd referred to some documentaries I made many years ago where I had been your enemy, and I love that because when I then got to know you a little bit, it turned out that no, we have no reasons to be enemies. So I'm very delighted to be on Some Dare Call It Conspiracy, a podcast that I think is very, very, very valuable, and you both do a great and funny job.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, man. Yeah, it was great. It was great to meet you in person, and I gotta say, thank you so much for putting me in your book. It's no hate on anyone else. Sorry, Dom. Sorry, Mariana. But this is probably the best telling of my story.
Good. Well, I'm delighted.
Although, suspiciously, didn't you meet for a pizza?
Yeah. Yes, we certainly did.
Well,
I know. Brent's doing.
Certain food groups are obviously satanic now. So this is the thing. You have to be very, very careful with the fast food that you pick. Yeah. There are all these occult trappings. What type of pizza do you have? Because that's often important.
Well, I always go for spicy. So I don't know if there's some sort of, hint at Satanism there.
Hellfire
upon myself. Brent went for the calzone, which he was sort of worried about because if you arrange those sort of triangular pieces, if you have, say, 5 of them, it's very easy to get a pizza pentagram going.
This is it. You can't tell me that's a coincidence. There's just no way.
No way.
So, yeah, absolutely. So, Danny, thank you so much for joining us. You've recently written a book looking into the world of conspiracy and disinformation and various things like that. So, it's a bit broad, but tell us a bit about it and tell us why you decided to write on this topic.
Well, I've always been interested, as I think you both have, although perhaps you took it further, both of you, in the big sort of what ifs, the big kind of question, the things that speak to the more paranoid side of our brains, or really just the parts of our brains that enjoy exploring stories, linking things together, wondering what could be true, what might be true, what might not be true, what is being held from us and why. And, there have been plenty of proper real life conspiracies that have definitely happened. And what I wanted to do with this book was create a kind of sort of an accessible way in for people who maybe didn't fall down the rabbit hole, but have certainly seen people do it, or who sometimes feel themselves teetering at the edge of it, or who enjoy again, those big kind of what ifs, the way that a lot of us get into big sci-fi adventures or series that kind of that tickle a part of our brain that we don't get from normal life. And the past few years have obviously been quite intense for absolutely everybody on Earth. And almost everybody, I think, finds themselves at some point questioning things. And whether they mean to or not, the past few months, I think everybody that I look at when I walk on the street, or I just think, for example, Kate Middleton, when she kind of disappeared for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a great example of a vacuum of information where suddenly everyone wanted to fill it with something, and share in that great sort of human storytelling way, share their own theories and share what they'd seen. And before you knew it, you were being contacted by family members who had never normally across these things, kind of going, well, here's my theory on the body double element to this. And you're like, you've never ever talked about body doubles in your life. And suddenly you're an expert in the way that so many people became epidemiologists.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating to me. The idea that we all think that we're immune to it, but actually, I don't think any of us are. I think that there are ideas out there that chime with our interests or our biases, that means that, like a magnet drawing us in, I mean, sometimes we're happy to jump in for a while, and hopefully it's a day trip, or in Brent's case, a lot longer.
Yeah.
I had my pension in there. Bless.
So did you ever entertain any conspiracies? Like, I mean, obviously, as you just said, sometimes things happen, there's scandals, embezzlement, espionage, that type of things. Did you ever entertain, or were you interested in any of the sort of classic conspiracy theories, like JFK, for example, or UFOs or anything like that?
Oh yeah, no, completely. And I think that there's loads of stuff going on. You mentioned UFOs. I mean, I think there's things happening. I've been really kind of listening to a lot of podcasts about this idea of disclosure.
Oh yeah,
and this idea that we're getting closer and closer to the moment where the aliens go, all right, listen, we've given you like 50 years to tell people about us, and you are still going along, you're doing the things that you're doing. So at some point in the next few years, we're just going to show ourselves, and you just have to deal with it. I love stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I love reading about it, and I love thinking about it. So yeah, UFOs have always been a thing for me. And we had a family friend who said, he was quite a serious kind of academic, although he was quite jokey, but very serious in terms of his reputation. And he maintains that he saw one night, and he came home and talked to my parents. This was in Maine in America, and was shaken, really shaken by something he'd seen, whether it was a military thing or some company testing stuff that they're keeping on the quiet. Maybe maybe he thought he saw something. I don't know, but he seemed absolutely certain. And I think that was ingrained in me from an early age, that someone I knew had seen something weird. I'm like that with ghosts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about ghosts.
Oh, I love the world of ghosts. I can't get enough of
Yeah,
it.
fantastic.
And I've seen strange things. I've seen strange things, and I've been to weird places, and stuff has happened that I can't explain. Things where I'm like, that definitely can't have happened. But where I'm still like, but it did, and I was there.
Yeah.
After my father passed away, there was a very strange thing that happened. A series of things that perhaps, you could kind of explain away. But the thing I couldn't explain was my mum standing in her kitchen, having had a very intense discussion on the phone with a family friend, a doctor, talking about what might have happened, and feeling something falling from the air and clattering on the ground. And she looked down, and there was a large plastic kind of soup spoon that she'd never seen before, and which I'd never seen before. And I went around and tried to kind of work out where this thing could have come from. Had it been on a cupboard? Had there been a window open? And I could find absolutely no explanation for it. The only place it could have been was hidden behind some pots, but even then, it would have had to have leapt over on its own. And I know that can't have happened, but I trust my mum, and I've never seen that spoon before. And now there is that spoon in our life. So I still don't know what to make of it, but I'm open enough, all these theories, to give them, credence and to try and work it out and to interrogate it a bit further. And I still don't know what to make of that. But like I say, that's something that can't have happened. And yet it seems to have.
Have you ever gone on like a ghost hunt or stayed in like a very haunted place or anything like that?
I've been in a couple. I went on the first ever. So years ago at the Edinburgh Festival, I'd been doing reports every day about what was happening in comedy and all this kind of stuff. And it was the last night of the festival. And I remember, I think the Mighty Boosh had won Newcomer or something. And I was going to work with them. And they were off kind of celebrating. And this man came up to me and said, "Hello, I've heard you're someone good to work with. Do you want to come with me to a haunted house?" And I sort of went, in my head, I'm going, I don't know who this man is. But I went, yes, I do. And it turned out it was the first time the BBC were doing an interactive ghost watch.
Oh, wow.
So they managed to get, access to this manor, Bewley Manor in Hampshire. And we could set up webcams everywhere, but this isn't the days where webcams were refreshing like every 3 seconds. So it wasn't like a live feed the whole time. So you would get images that might then be explained. You get the image of a man standing somewhere the man wasn't. And then you'd realize, oh, that's a technician and there's a delay or whatever. But more and more things started to happen that night. And it was really weird by almost how cliched it was. At midnight, it started raining. A moment after that, all the batteries in our equipment failed. Changed batteries and everything. A man collapsed. He said he was under psychic attack. He just set up what he called a time arch, which was a pyramid thing with hieroglyphics on it. He'd made at home.
Okay.
I was kind of laughing about it because I'm like, this is a bit ridiculous. But equally, the first thing that happened to me was I went for a walk around and suddenly I started to feel very, very emotional near this one little part. And I'd been into the technical guys because I thought they've got no skin in the game. They're here to set things up but replace the batteries that seem to have inexplicably failed. And this one guy, Tim, was like, you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm all right. But I just felt really emotional, just very, very emotional by this one place. And he said, was it by that arch? And I said, yeah. And he had felt a very similar thing. And these things kept happening. We had dowsing rods, which seemed to me to be the most ludicrous piece of ghost hunting equipment. It's like 2 bent coat hangers.
Yeah.
And you walk around a massive room and they're supposed to twitch or something. And I walked into a massive room and I saw these tech guys and they looked shaken. And I said, what's up? And they said, just walk around this room, will you? And just tell us where you feel weird. And so I took the rods and I walked around the room and nothing happened until I got to this one point where they started to move in my hand round and round. And I was like, am I doing this? So I looked at them and they just looked terrified. And I went, was it here? And they went, yeah, it was there. And apparently that was above where, people used to get put to death.
Oh, right.
And many other things happened that weekend. But we did one at the Tower of London a couple of years later. And that was weird. That was when everyone was talking about orbs.
Oh, yeah, you're catching them on the cameras.
Yeah, you feel something's happening, you take a picture. If an orb turns up, it's definitely a ghost. But it might not be. It might be digital technology catching dust or whatever. But I remember taking the camera and really feeling stuff. Like, I don't know, it was probably suggestion, it was probably being in that thing, but taking pictures and it being covered in these things. And then at one point walking by the turrets, on the edge of the Tower of London and taking a moment to think how lucky I was to be in this place that no one's really ever allowed to stay in overnight. And I'm looking out over London, and then from right behind me, in this single glass pane window, the sound of not a house settling, not a normal crack or creak, but almost like a flat palm, bang, against the window, like I'm in their view. And I absolutely pegged it. I broke a land speed record at the Tower of London just at that noise. And again, it's like, perhaps it's the feeling of being there. But my point is, I'm open to this stuff in the way that I'm open to hearing ideas about conspiracy. But I also have to, make my own mind up.
No, fair play. My friend, when I was about 20 years ago, I was playing in a band, like the drummer, his house used to be haunted.
Wow.
And we were like, shut up. And both his parents, who were like, very respectable people, had told us, come home, watch somebody walking up the stairs, assumed it was a burglar, chased them into the bedroom, and there's just nobody there. And there was a couple of occasions when we were, in the kitchen late at night doing things that teenagers and people in the early 20s do late at night. And we'd vaguely hear pianos being played in the attic.
No.
But there was no piano in the attic.
Why
which
would there?
Used to... Why would there be? Exactly. Yeah.
You don't need a pianist. And you've got to be pretty middle class to have your own attic pianist.
Yeah, they had an attic pool table, but yeah, the piano was actually downstairs in the hall.
Wow.
But we used to be able to vaguely sort of hear, like, just like it was almost like a cat was running across it or something. It was just like jung, 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 like that. But the most impressive thing that happened was we got to his house one afternoon, and it was ridiculously hot, really hot summer. And we walked in the door, and he used to have 3 dogs that just come screaming at you.
Yeah.
And they were sat on the stairs, halfway up the stairs, and they were all just looking straight at us, looking terrified. And the room was freezing cold. So it was like walking into a fridge. Like, so we'd come out from this is like August or something, opened the front door, walked in. Dogs are terrified. Everything's cold. And we just sat there, just stood there for about 5 minutes, just going, something's not right. And then weirdly, no, I'm serious, this actually happened. Then weirdly, it all just sort of dissipated. And the dogs came sort of bounding down the stairs to see Ashton, who was the lad who was, and that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, freaky, unusual, shall we say.
In those situations, sometimes the strange thing is when it goes back to normality.
Yeah, because it really highlights the freakiness of what you've just experienced.
We had a thing where I ran down, we'd had a webcam on, and there was a guy who'd stayed down there because he sensed something, he said. And looking on the webcam, suddenly we could see like a tower, like a figure, like a grey figure that then became bright white, that then became darker. And what was weird was talking to him on the walkie-talkies. The brand new walkie-talkies suddenly were just like cutting out as up like that.
Wow.
And I ran down there. And the scariest thing wasn't him going, I saw something. It wasn't what we'd seen. It was when the walkie-talkies came back to perfect life with crystal clarity. And you were like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, something strange has just happened there. Yeah.
There were some neighbours of mine that my favourite one. I know you don't just want to talk about ghosts, but I do love ghosts. Or the idea of...
I like ghosts.
But the last thing was, there was a family, my mum only told me this recently. She was like, do you remember those people who used to live down the street? And she referenced these people who were, they were a couple, they had one son, they were both doctors, and they had moved to our street, which was a street of modern houses. And they used to live in the countryside in an old house. And she said, you know why they moved to our street? And I said, no, I don't. And she said, it's because their old house was haunted. I was like, really? But it was haunted in a really weird way, a weird way that absolutely freaked them out. And I was like, was it like a headless horseman? Was it a screaming lady? Was it a creepy child? And she went, no, it was ducks. And
Okay.
times at night, a bunch of ghost ducks would walk in, bold as brass, through the door, literally through the door, not opening it, through the door, walk through the hallway, and just make their way upstairs to the bedrooms. I don't know if they had duck bedrooms. I don't know what this was, but there were no ducks. But each member of the family saw the ghost ducks, and that was frightening enough for them to go, we can no longer stay in a house haunted by ducks.
Yeah, that's a strange one. Like, for some reason, that reminds me of the bit in Seven where they lie about the hotel, the apartment being close to the train track. I can just imagine people moving in and discovering the ducks on the first night. I just didn't tell us about this.
Bloody ducks everywhere.
Fantastic. So you've obviously sort of you've dallianced in sort of conspiracy world and stuff like that. You obviously years and years ago you went to Austin and you actually you met Alex Jones. This was when he was slightly less raving, but what was your impression of Alex when you met him?
Well, I mean, an unusual man. I know that. Was he someone that you sort of ever followed?
Yes, but only through his films. Like, there's a fabulous like podcast called Knowledge Fight that shows his radio show, and it's just continuous like idiocy and just ludicrous lying and just obvious blah blah blah. That didn't come across when you were only sort of getting a film once every 6 months or whatever. Like, I never actually watched his radio show, but I was sort of a fan of his films, and particularly at the time they were so different to anything that anyone else had put out. It was like, oh, you think you're anti-establishment? This guy thinks that the government did 9/11. Like, how punk rock is that? Like, so he was framed in a very different way. Looking back at it now, you go, oh, that's nonsense. Oh, that's nonsense. Oh, that's nonsense. Oh, that's a lie. Oh, that's very, very thinly veiled white supremacy. Oh, that's horrific. Stuff like that. At the time, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I started to go off of him about the time that the Obama deception came out and stuff like that, because it just seemed to start. He'd been very apolitical and made a very big deal of being apolitical. And I suppose at the time, you know, Clinton was there, but there was aspects of the Clinton regime that were universally hated. And then there was Bush was when I sort of got into it. And so it came across as quite a left-wing thing. And very, very quickly, that myth was just gone, just dispelled. And it started to go into very, very sort of uncomfortable areas, basically like quasi-racist areas and stuff like that. And that's where I sort of lost the interest with him, really.
Well, it's sort of similar with you, isn't it, Brent? Because you sort of got out of it in a roundabout way because of Alex Jones. But were you were you grabbed by any of those sort of ideas early on?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
Bohemian Grove was one of the major ones, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, exactly. Like his Bohemian Grove documentary, his martial law 9/11 documentaries, that whole Road to Tyranny series of documentaries. Those were all the things I was downloading, you know, because he like, I liked listening to him and Jordan Maxwell and David Icke and William Cooper, and had like all of them kind of, they covered different aspects of this massive conspiracy. So I didn't listen to everything that each one of them said, but I agreed with quite a lot of things. And yeah, Alex Jones, definitely one of those people that had all those documentaries that were just packed full of information. And it was like like Neil's kind of saying, like, there is a bit like quite punk rock in that way. It's like a punk rock version of Michael Moore. Say Michael Moore was like very center of the road, essentially, to someone like Jones or Icke.
Yeah, and he had that. He had that way of communicating, didn't he? Like, as you sort of point out, he could sort of make it accessible to a certain degree. Because I've always felt that when you're talking to a lot of conspiracy theorists, they batter you with information.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, like things you can't possibly have known. And then you're sort of on the back foot, you're confused because they're going, well, what you have to do is watch these 9 YouTube videos and read these 3 theses and then find this essay this German guy wrote in 1732 and then work your way back. And you're like, me, I haven't got time for homework. You know what I mean? But when I met Alex, he was kind of at the beginning of his journey, I guess, reasonably close to the beginning of it, because it was still like 3 or 4 months before YouTube was even launched. No one knew the phrase YouTube. Seems ridiculous now, but it just wasn't. If you'd come up to us that day and talk to us about YouTube, we'd have been like, we don't know what it's all about. And yet, a few months later, that would be the thing that launched, that would then bring him to the biggest audience imaginable and multiply his following by millions, because he was a guy in Austin, Texas, shouting in a garage, living a normal life, with a perfectly lovely girlfriend and a perfectly lovely house, driving a perfectly ordinary truck. It's just that he also had a late night radio show, I think, and a cable TV show that was watched in and around that area, but enough for when we were out and about, a young man to walk up, kind of young military-looking guy, and offer his hand and look into Alex's eyes and say, thank you for all you're doing for this country. And that moment I could see meant a lot to Alex because he was finding an audience and what he said mattered. He also at one point pulled out a bullhorn from nowhere.
Yeah, he'll do that.
Like, I don't remember him getting it out of the car. I don't remember him having it in his hand. 1 minute we're talking, the next second, he is amplified 100 times and he is shouting at a building. And then I have no memory of where the megaphone went after that. It just seemed like it was a natural extension of him. And like Inspector Gadget or something. And it was, a long couple of days because I don't think he ever stopped shouting. He was always furious. But he was also very vulnerable. He really wanted me to like him, and I did like him. And I could make jokes at his expense a little bit, and he kept sort of subtly saying, you're going to screw me over. But he had to keep doing it. And I was reassuring him, we're not going to screw you over. What you say is what we'll hear. We're not going to take words or sentences or put them in a weird order. This is part of a bigger show. And he and I, I think we definitely got on. And then he wanted to show me skyscrapers that he thought looked like owls. And either it's my politeness or it's whatever bond we had. I didn't want to say they don't look like owls. I wanted to go, they look owly, I guess, to give him something. You know what I mean? And then we went off to P.F. Chang's China Bistro because he wanted some sticky beef. At one point on the way there, I remember him opening up the central console bit of his car and getting out a beer and then saying to me, you're very brave to drive with me. And I thought he meant the beer, I think, at first. And I was like, oh, why is that? And he said, oh, well, they recently tried to kill me in this truck.
Yeah.
That's an unusual thing to hear. And I was like, oh, God, I wanted to go, oh, I'm sorry. But I went, well, who are you talking about? And he said, oh, well, from memory, I think he was saying it was the CIA. I think he was just kind of referring to them as a sort of a they. And I went, how did they try and do it? And he said they sent a tornado. And I didn't realize they could do that. Well, how do you commiserate someone in that there's no Hallmark card. You can, sorry, is the tornado didn't get you.
Well, this is what the CIA used to do. Like, this was, they trained their assassins, this is true, to turn up and not take a gun or a knife or anything with them, to actually kill people with something that they found on the scene often. Because then, then you've got you going to and from the scene, you're not caught with a weapon, etc., etc. It can look like a crime of passion and stuff like that. So maybe, just maybe, Alex Jones was actually telling you the truth about the tornado.
So you reckon there was a couple of CIA guys who used a passing tornado?
You'd be a fool to let that pass. It's just, you know, it's there. It's in your face. Like,
holy shit, the tornado, use that, quickly, use it.
Exactly. You know, other blokes found himself a nice big rock.
Is it like curling? You've got to sort of like,
I think so.
Brush.
Yeah. yeah. That'll be it. That's it. Two men in black feverishly wafting it with their hats.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it works. Yeah, very much so. It's interesting what you say, though, because Alex is sort of, you know, I think he's changed. I think a lot of the culture has changed. And it's interesting you bring up YouTube, because in many ways, that's the thing that exploded the culture and destroyed it as well. Because all of a sudden, there's several things. One, people demand things in bite-sized stuff. So it's just sort of tropes, headlines and things, as opposed to go off and read this book or whatever.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is that when it's open to a broader sort of audience, there's more people who will pick on it. And now here's the thing, right? Okay, like there'll be always some people that pick on conspiracy theories, and that was almost like a badge of honor, like for the BBC or Sky or whoever to approach Alex Jones. That's an indication to the audience that so Alex is on something. Otherwise, the BBC and the Sky News wouldn't send their agents down there to discredit him, so to speak. Like, do you know what I mean? But at the same time, this is where things... it whips everything up so that everything is more tribal and more silly. But then it also gives you the opportunity to sort of examine things more closely and start going, hang on, that's not true. And hang on, that's not true. And hang on, that's not true. So, I mean, I assume you must have had a dip in the conspiracy culture sort of more recently when you were researching the book and such. Did you notice a difference in the sort of, in the communities, so to speak?
Yeah, I did. Certainly much wider. Certainly a broader type of person. Certainly a more aggressive stance, I would say.
Yes, very much so.
I would say, yeah, very different from how it was 20 years ago, where, you could have two people trying to convince each other of different things, whereas now it's us and our massive gang against whatever individuals say. We're going to batter them with facts, with takes, with reference points, because we are now a big growing mass. And pre-YouTube, it was Alex Jones broadcasting out. Now it's much more of a conversation that people have amongst themselves before each of them broadcasts out. So everyone's now got their own channel, their own way of doing things, their own megaphone. If Alex Jones was walking down the street, his way of broadcasting was to use that megaphone to shout at that building. YouTube came, he didn't need that megaphone anymore. He had screens. And then everyone else realized, well, we've all got a screen as well. So they could do what you're saying, which is discuss amongst themselves, push back with things they don't agree with. I know that was a kind of a thing with you, Brent, the fact that there were certain things that you absolutely kind of agreed with the likes of Alex Jones on until it didn't quite align with your specific strain of the theory. And you couldn't quite match the two together. Is that right?
Yes.
So like with the Alex thing, you both agreed at that stage, and you don't anymore, that Sandy Hook had strange things going on there. But he thought everyone was acting, and you thought they weren't acting, they were a human sacrifice. And that's kind of when you start to think, these things can't all be true. We can't have everyone broadcasting at the same time. Either there's a theory with, elements we can disagree on, or we're all kind of having our own ones. And that's where, I guess, fractures start to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like factions or party lines now. It used to be very much have a discussion. There's a very, I think it's at the end of that Dave von Kleist video, one of the early 9/11s. There's a thing where basically some people think that it was fake planes, some people think it was something else, some people think it was a missile. And they're all sort of, this was as close to an argument as I ever saw it get. There were slight raised voices, but everyone was very polite and smiling. Now, if you don't agree on absolutely 100% of these touch points, then you're not to be trusted at all. And it's very strange.
It used to be a movement. It used to be a community, and now it is tribes.
Yeah. And it's partly political. It's partly to do with the access to social media and but several things with social media. The fact that everybody is their own main character, they're their own sort of anchor of their show. There's the immediacy that people demand information, and also the fact that now you can put something out on, say, Twitter and think that you've got to remember the sort of, like, when you are a conspiracist or whatever, you come in from it from the aspect of like you're trying to save the world. And so regardless of how sort of like ill-informed that might be, like if you're doing something and then somebody immediately comes back with a tweet going, "You're an idiot, where's your tinfoil hat, blah, 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 blah," it becomes combative before it's even started.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think very strongly there's a lot of corporations, political parties, and media outlets decided to adopt certain traits of conspiracy because they saw that it was exciting and they saw that it appealed to an audience. And now you've got these sort of idiocy where you've got things like, Talk TV and GB News, which is like this close to Rush Limbaugh, which is this close to what Alex Jones does. So, but it's using similar tactics because of the nature of people don't tend to sit down and watch long things now. So you've got to hook them straight away, and you've got to make people angry, and you've got to make people,
but also make them feel powerful.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, come on,
Yeah.
you jump on board my thing and we'll all be powerful. We'll still be powerless, still be victims. They'll all still be out to get us. But here's how back, like they're the rebel alliance.
Exactly. And that victimization, it gives you a dopamine rush in the same way that basically getting pleasure does. If somebody telling you that you're right makes your brain go, brilliant, okay, but somebody telling you that you're wrong, or telling you and your community that there's this existential threat or whatever, it gives you the same thing. This is why people read the Daily Mail and like watch Fox News and watch sort of like Alex Jones and stuff like that, because they're addicted to being angry.
Yeah.
And whether that's consciously or subconsciously, loads and loads of people are playing to that media model now, because it gets a rabid audience that basically you can sift it out straight away. Your audience is either with you or against you, and if they're with you, then all of a sudden it's very lucrative, and the lionization and the sort of the back and forth that you get, there's a lot of, oh, you're so clever. No, you're so clever for getting this and whatnot. And it's a very strange thing.
What do you guys think then about the people who you mentioned, the sort of this idea of selling anger, which absolutely works, because if you feel bad, if you are, getting towards the end of your working life, so you've got more time on your hands, things haven't gone the way you wanted, you don't see your kids as much, you don't feel valued in the way you used to, no one notices you in the way they used to, you're not as important as you used to feel. Anger is great, because you can relate on something, and it can be something as suburban as the front page of the Daily Mail selling you lies, or it can be that visceral rush you get at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday when an opening monologue on some right-wing cable news channel, the type we used to laugh at in this country.
Yeah.
I used to sometimes work and listen to Fox News when it was still broadcast on Sky, because I was amazed at it. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I didn't have anyone to share it with. I wanted to say, did you see Fox News? But no one was watching it. It was never going to appeal here. And then we got our own versions. And I watched some people that I knew and liked and thought a reasonable amount of, and would have trusted to feed my cat, take the money, completely change everything I knew about them, change their opinions, change their entire worldview, and sit there and be awful for money in front of a baying mob they couldn't see, and would never ever want to have a drink with. I know they do not respect the people they're trying to cultivate, and yet they're tickling their anger, getting them all sort of riled up. And I find that the worst. I don't know how you feel, Brent.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to ask, is this your friend, your comedian friend, who said that he would meet up with you and then ended up ghosting you in the book?
Yeah, I've got a couple, actually. There's a couple of people that I know who I liked. Can I say I still like them? I don't know. One I think I still like because their personality is so kind of magnetic, and the other I don't think I like anymore because of how artlessly they have turned to the wrong side. They have done it so cynically. They have done it purely, and I think the signs are always there now that I think about it. But I think about what would have happened during the war and who would have been first to kind of sign up to the bad guys if the bad guys take over the country. And I'm like, yeah, I see that now. I see how that can happen. I see how that we can say that our mates are all, no, we would never do that. And then you turn to the guy in the pub that you would normally have sort of had a polite chat with, and you realize, God, yeah, it's him, isn't it? He's the one. He done locked me away. Yeah, and I got in touch with this guy, and I said, listen, it's me, and, I'll be fair, but I just want to sort of work out what's happened here and how this fits with the you I know. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, great, absolutely. And I was like, wow. And then I think he thought about it more and wondered how in our, what would have been a friendly chat, there would have been moments where we, butted heads slightly, but we'd have arrived friendly and left friendly. I've no doubt about that. He suddenly realized, how would I justify this? How does this look from the outside? What questions is he going to ask me? Because I don't think I have the answers. So then what do I do? And I think he thought, it's better not to answer those questions and protect what I now have than have to admit that it's wrong, because then everything crumbles. And he's still doing it. And he's still out there. And I still don't believe him. Unless you get to the point where you have to survive, start to believe. And maybe that's where he's at. Being kind of having some deniability, but really kind of getting behind, anti-vax, demonization of others. And I know he doesn't think that.
Yeah. It is strange, isn't it? Again, one of the things that also informs this was the rise of things like vox pops, like the idea that, when the news starts asking the public their opinion about the news before they've even told them what the news is, it involves the audience. And in the same way, that sort of the rise of social media, the rise of this, and this is what leads the sort of, there is a class of people who have taken on board the sort of conspiratorial trait and are just grifting. And they do all of these things because it's about creating that false sense of community, creating that false sense of we're a bit special, we're a bit sort of separate from everybody else and stuff like that.
Because, you want to talk to these people on an equal level, but when it's clear that they feel sorry for you for not having their special knowledge, it kind of infantilizes you a bit. And nothing you say can kind of compete with all their references. You mentioned vox pops as well. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. Vox pops have been very damaging. Also, that idea of balance.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
But the idea that you can have an expert and then just some guy and just put them together. So you can have an expert in, say, Eat Out to Help Out, and then you can have a guy who works in a pub who just doesn't want to lose money. And somehow they're supposed to be equal. Spots. Well, what are you going to do? Sensible people, by definition, are boring. They have a sensible opinion that you probably have at home, and that's not interesting to see because you've just said that to your husband or your wife. So what do? You use the extremes. And what are the more exciting extremes? Well, they're the messages of doom or hate. It's just how it works. It's why any of this kind of happened in the first place. So yeah, absolutely. I think vox pops, while the easiest and mildest thing on paper to put on TV. I mean, God, so easy. Go outside, talk to someone.
But this is why they get done, though, isn't it? Because they're cheap, it's easy to produce. But the problem is that basically, everybody's their own main character nowadays. Anybody can go on Love Island or Big Brother and suddenly become a celebrity just by existing.
Yeah, I'm not sure they booked me for Love Island, but no, I take the point.
But that's because you're not obnoxious enough. That was going to be my next point, is that they're going to go for the people who are the most sort of like, they'll walk into a room and so there's 7 people. It's like, who's got the most problems?
Yeah.
Who's going to rat-a-tat-tat on the screen, essentially?
Yeah.
And the problem is that basically, so you've got the internet, you've got the media, you've got everybody through social media thinking that their opinion matters or counts or is accurate. And you mash all this together and the boundaries are so fluid at the minute. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can become a media personality just by saying something stupid on the internet.
And they do, don't they? I mean, the fact that Darren Grimes exists.
Christ, yeah, absolutely.
He's like a ventriloquist's puppet. And
yes.
you just think, well, who is pulling the strings? Is it just ambition? Not to get too conspiracy theory, but is it just ambition? Or is he being told, well, this is what sells? And very often it is that. I've watched people I enjoyed on the radio. I've listened to them going from, right-thinking people who were halfway through lockdown and were having, as hard as it was for most people, it was harder for many. They were having a sort of easier time of it, to them having this incredible turnaround where they are talking about elections being stolen, ballot boxes being rigged, Fauci being this octogenarian force for evil. I'm like, well, how did this happen? You went from kind of mild to extra strong.
Well, I don't know. It's very strange. I suppose the thing is, like the lockdown and then sort of people's access to it. As you just said that, I was thinking about back when I first got into conspiracy theories, and I'm sure Brent was the same. We got into it quite quickly. And like, after a couple of weeks or what, we're like, have you seen this? And have you seen this? And I'm sending off for this DVD and I'm reading this book and blah, blah, blah. Because it's fascinating. It's like a new thing that you've discovered. And you want to share it with everybody else. And, thinking back, I was probably really annoying. Like, thank God I didn't have Twitter or Facebook or anything like that to really sort of.
I guess it's like a hobby, or you find your way in life, isn't it? Don't you find a thing?
Yeah.
To you, and then it becomes your obsession. I know it did for you, Brem.
Yeah, or like Neil said before, like it's like finding a new band that nobody else has heard of, and all you want to do is just play it all the time and show it to other people and wear all the T-shirts and go see them at the gigs and just really immerse yourself in it.
You know who I was like that was? That for me was Michael Jackson when I was a kid. I could not shut up about Michael Jackson. My God. Any mention of him, even if it just was in the Radio Times and it said, Top of the Pop, 7 p.m., Thursday, featuring the Michael Jackson video, I would cut that out and stick it on my wall. Such was my admiration for him. In fact, as a child, I only wrote to 2 people to sort of request hanging out with them. The first was Michael Jackson. That could have gone wrong. And the second was Jimmy Savile.
Right. Okay. So
I'm for the first time, I'm pleased that sometimes people are too busy to reply.
Are there any conspiracies about Michael Jackson? I can't think of any off the top of my head. But yeah. So when you were examining the stuff for the book, and what sort of communities or things did you sort of approach and start to look at?
Well, it started really. The whole thing started because after my dad passed away, you find yourself having to do lots of things that you never thought you'd have to do. You have to tell people that it's happened, and you have to sort out whatever needs sorting out, bills that need paying, texts that need replying to, whatever. And one of the people I had to tell was this man that got in touch, and he was so shocked that it had happened. And I think that he was almost more shocked than anybody else I told. And he happened to be an old Chinese man that my dad had met by a lake 12 years before in China. And my dad was an academic, and he had been in China to deliver some lectures. And it was frowned upon, I think, for Chinese colleagues to hang out with a Western colleague. And so they would go off to their homes, and he would be on his own the whole time. So when he was walking around this lake and he looked behind him, and miles behind there was this old Chinese guy. And the next time he looked around, almost like in a horror film, he was like much closer. And the next time he turned around, he's there. And the guy wanted to talk to my dad, which in itself was unusual because, again, that's kind of frowned upon over there. A random Westerner walking around, the government isn't too into it. But he pressed his email address into my dad's hand and said, we must keep in contact. There's much we could tell each other. And they were sort of like pen pals, if you like. Intermittent emails every now and again. I was vaguely aware of it. And then when I'm looking at it, I start to notice all these very strange things about the emails. And I start to notice how the fonts are different, the colors are different, some bits seem copied and pasted. And I'm like, well, maybe it's Google Translate, maybe it's something weird going on there. Maybe he's writing round robins to other people and sticking it in.
Yeah.
But then I noticed that a lot of the emails began with a complete recap of all the emails so far, which is something no one does.
No.
Kind of going, you last wrote to us on this time, or this day at this time, Chinese Standard Time. You have written to us 34 times. We have written to you 43 times. And I was like, this isn't normal behavior. And it was when, really, to cut a long story very short, I noticed that they quoted something from my dad's email in an email to me. And I saw that in the little bits of technical stuff where it says from and to and subject, it said brackets Ian Wallace -34. And I checked, and it was my dad's 34th reply. And computers don't do that. Not that I think they do. But people do if they're numbering or labeling or organizing something. And I was like, why would you number all your emails? And I started to think, what if these recaps at the start are actually someone telling a wider team or telling us the story so far? Who's mind copied into this? And so I started to, in the great tradition, do my own research. And I started to reach out, and I ended up talking to a guy in British intelligence. And I wanted him to tell me, yes, you're going mad. You're in the thick of grief. People start to develop these strange ideas. They start to put 2 and 2 together and get 5.
Why?
But instead he said, I think you're onto something here. I think this could be an operation, a Chinese, at least state-sanctioned operation. A military.
Wow.
But something's happening here. And that made me realize that either way, I was at a rabbit hole, and either there was truth to be had or there wasn't. But it made me realize how easily this had occurred, and it was because of 2020 and everything that had happened around that time, where we were all inundated with incredible, and I mean incredible in the purest form, information that could lead any of us down some dangerous places. So the book was an attempt to look at how anyone, even the author, can be affected by this stuff, how it can affect a country, a town, or even a double bed. You know, I talked to a guy who's in a relationship with someone who's right down that rabbit hole. And that led me to talk to people about the grifters that we've talked about. And it was George Monbiot, the journalist, who said, you should talk to Brent Lee. And I said, who's Brent Lee? And he told me. And so I emailed Brent Lee. And that's when Brent Lee, to take us right back to the start of the conversation, said, Danny Wallace, my old enemy.
I know you. You're from the New World Order.
The idea, when talking to Brent in that pizza place, that for a while at least, there was a forum that would discuss why it was I kept appearing in different parts of the media. And suddenly I was sort of talking about conspiracy theories and questioning them. But then I'd be on like a game show. It was almost like...
It's almost like you had an agent or somebody that was putting you in contact with them.
But the very fact that everyone was so confused about why I was suddenly appearing in things, I think was a searing indictment and a huge criticism of any talent I may have. Because they were going, there is no explanation for this. Why is he getting these gigs? That's what it boils down to. They were going, this must be the deep state. This has to be the New World Order. There is no explanation.
Well, they rewarded you with Hollywood films and things like that, didn't they?
Yeah,
That would be the thing. Actually, you know what? I'd never...
Told me.
I know, yeah, I've never really thought of it like that. Like, how pissed off you must have been. It's like, oh, the fucking Illuminati. I actually worked my arse off to write this book.
I only worked it out as an insult about 4 nights ago, and I couldn't stop laughing. It's like, oh my God, they're actually just going, how the hell? There is no way on earth this guy should be doing like network television and writing books. You know, one of the best things I saw was once when I did a program about Bigfoot, and I posited the radical idea that Bigfoot may not be real. Maybe Bigfoot is, but may not be. And they got furious with me. And I remember one of them doing some research, and they said, what's curious about this guy is I can find no evidence of any activity before 1995. And I thought, I was at school. Like, how much ability could I really? I mean, I won a championship some years before that, made the Loughborough Echo. But apart from that, there's very little footprint, unlike Bigfoot.
So you've been receiving sort of backlash throughout your career. Anytime you sort of dallianced in the sort of conspiracy pool or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Did you get any backlash from the book, or like, what was that like?
No, I had some backlash, but I was not for the book, but for the shows and stuff. But I was just oblivious to. I had no real idea of the level of vitriol that apparently was aimed at me until Brent told me. I knew about the Bigfoot guys; I'd seen that. But aside from that, I think my approach tends to be hopefully one of empathy. But also, I'm not bad with a joke, and jokes tend to be the enemy of people who take themselves very seriously, because you can still be nice with a joke. I've always tried to be as positive as I can in terms of humor. I try not to slash people down or whatever unless they're really mean to me. And if someone was mean, I would maybe do that. And then it's very difficult when someone uses jokes on you because it means they sort of understand what you're saying, but still don't believe you. And B, it means they're taking you seriously enough to make a joke, but not seriously enough not to make a joke. And that's difficult for people to deal with. I think it's perhaps why I haven't had much backlash from people. Someone like Marina Spring, who's much more, present in this world, I think she is at two disadvantages, which is one, she is a woman, and two, she is younger than most journalists. And I think that a lot of conspiracy theorists tend to think that with a younger woman, they will be able to impose through their voice alone their truth, and that young woman should be grateful to receive it. And they're silly.
Yeah.
You never hear of someone talking about a man that's silly.
No.
Probably Father Dougal from Father Ted. You might call it. But you don't tend to call like men you meet silly. A man in the pub. What was that guy like? It's silly. Like, what does that mean? Like Mr. Bean. But they'll say that about women.
Yeah, it's dismissive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's dismissive because they just go, well, they don't know as much as me. Well, what if they know? So what if they, are able to question you? So she gets, all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think I'm sort of old enough as well now to just kind of go, oh, shut up.
Yeah.
Or, well, what about this? And they'll take me seriously just because of my voice is deeper and I'm a man.
I mean, Mariana just she gets so much rubbish, doesn't she? I think she's very brave the way that she puts herself in those sorts of things. Have you tried to sort of because what Mariana does sometimes is she'll engage with these people, she'll respond to them and stuff like that, and try and eke out sort of an understanding. Have you bothered with that, or do you just go, you know what, give a shit?
Well, it depends on the context. Like, a guy in the pub, then yeah, absolutely. I've done that. I did that not too long ago, and it was a slightly difficult conversation because there was a guy I sort of half knew, and he was talking about talking to his mate, who is a conspiracy theorist who blames everything on the Jews, and he kept going, "But what can you do? But what can you do?" And I kept going, well, you can tell him, something's wrong.
There's a lot you could do. Yeah.
And he's like, it's difficult, isn't it? I'm going, no, it's really easy, man. He said, no, but it is difficult. You can't just do that. I'm going, and I was saying, it is, I suppose it's difficult, but it's also easy. You just say that, you just do that. Like I'm doing with you right now. Like this should be an awkward chat. I'm telling you no. And you're not even being racist, but you're helping a racist. So why don't you do that? And do you know, I haven't spoken to him, I haven't seen him since. I hope he's not gone.
He's avoiding you, is he?
I'm pushing him further down. But I'll talk to them and I'll challenge it, but I'll always try and I'll do it with a smile on my face and we'll always, have a drink after and that kind of thing.
It's quite surprising actually when you do press people on certain things that they don't have an answer for it. Like that was one of the things I suppose that Brent and I basically found when we were sort of coming out of it is like certain things that are assumed or tropes or truisms or whatever. And then when you actually pull on that string and go, okay, this has been talked about for ages, like the Rothschild owned the Bank of England or whatever. And then when you go and check, you go, oh my God, that's not even close to being true or whatever. There's a film that we watched, that Corey Good or whatever, it was that film with David Icke is in, and he's trying to explain to him about the reptilians. And he gives him like two things. He goes, well, here's a picture of a snake, and here's something that sounds a bit like a snake. And the bloke goes, oh, I'm not really buying it. And Dave goes, well, you've got to spend years. It's a tapestry, a rich tapestry, and blah, 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 blah. And
that's lucky, isn't it? Because you'd think,
isn't it?
You'd think that any massive thing like that, and you had years.
Yes.
You did study that tapestry for years. Surely you would have come up with one thing that you can say succinctly that requires only the skin.
No other, you don't have to compare it to this. Well, once we've read the protocols of the Elders of Zion and we've compared it to the way that the seventh seal opened on blah, 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 then we can clearly see that they're all shapeshifters. But yeah, there isn't that, is there? Like, so have you ever had any interactions with the Ikes?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I have.
Has he? I've read the book. Neil hasn't read the book.
Oh, well.
I haven't had a chance to read the book yet.
Well,
sorry.
You've worked with the Ike Juniors.
I did, yes, for a very brief period of time.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. So I got an email one day from former radio producer turned comedian Carl Pilkington.
Oh, yeah.
And it said, all right, got an email from Ad Conspiracies. Just let you know, just pass it on. And I looked at this email from a lad called Gareth, and it rang a bell somehow. Carl had said, I think, that he's a singer-songwriter from the Isle of Wight. And one of my jobs is radio. And at that stage, I was doing a Saturday morning radio show on then XFM. And I remember sitting there at the desk and someone pointed at a CD that was there. And I looked at it, and on it was a handsome young dude, I think, with a guitar probably, and a quote. And the quote said something along the lines of, sparkling wit, great lyrics, the new Oscar Wilde, or whatever. Daddy Wallace, XFM. And I thought, well, that's weird, because I did not say that. And I've never heard of this guy. I'm sure he's good. But also I thought, well, maybe he's hustling. Fat lot of good money was going to do him. You know, the music industry isn't looking to me for recommendations, but great. So this email I then read, and it's Gareth, and he's annoyed at me. He's annoyed at me because he has been in touch with me for the past few months. And I have been doing all sorts of stuff to try and help him in his career, including giving him that quote, having heard his album apparently and thought it was incredible. And I have been arranging book meetings with my publishers for Gareth, who has some ideas. I have arranged for him to sing a duet or maybe open for Idlewild at like Shepherd's Bush Empire. Something's happening. The dogs are whirring.
He's told me this story. Sorry, carry on. Yeah, Gareth's told me this story. Carry on, though, because this is brilliant.
Well, I arranged for him to play Idlewild.
Well,
See, this is what I find so confusing, right? So this all definitely happened. And now I'm getting your view, which colours my way of thinking again. So I hadn't done that, obviously. I have no in with Idlewild. At that stage, I'd never really heard any Idlewild. And I certainly couldn't arrange for him to open for Idlewild. Hello, Idlewild. Can this man I've never met come over from the Isle of Wight on a hovercraft and open for you, right? I can't. I don't have that power. And then his mate had been drawn into it as well. And his mate, who weirdly I only talked about maybe a couple of weeks ago for the first time ever. I remembered a mate had been involved. And I said his mate had been dragged all the way to London as well for some special party that they weren't invited to, and nor was I, and they were either ejected or the party didn't exist. So I'm on the phone with Gareth because I say to him, this sounds insane. I think someone is impersonating me or I don't understand. So I'm chatting with him. And he keeps confusing the fake me with the real me. He keeps going, every time I called you, you were always in the shower. And I was like, okay, you weren't calling me. That wasn't me. I wasn't in the shower. And he's going, you always had some excuse. And there was still like a tremble of anger in his voice. So I'm like, again, it's not me, man. But I said, someone's messing about with you. And I think that now you have my number and you know it's me, if you're in London sometime, why don't you come to the pub? We'll talk about it. And that fake quote I gave you, now I'm getting confused, that I didn't give you, I will give you that. I will say those words out loud so that we take the bad that someone's doing and turn it into something good. And hopefully that will annoy them, but you get something out of it. So before I know it, he comes to London and we meet at the Garrick Arms opposite XFM as was. And we chat and we talk about all this stuff. And he was a fan of some other people I knew. And so I gave him a ring. And Alex Zane came down from the radio.
Well.
And Richard Bacon. And so we're there all just hanging out with Gareth. And it's all great and nice. And I feel like we're getting to the bottom of things. And then I make him video me and I say, Gareth Icke has the talent of this and that and Oscar Wilde, blah, blah, blah. Because we've worked out that we think it's someone he knows. And I said, send it to that person now. And so he sent it to that person. This person who turned out also to have been making up or according to him, was saying that they said that they had lunch with my wife. They knew where she worked. It was all a bit weird. And so he sent this evidence of us all together with the quote. And they wrote back and just said, now do you believe me? So whatever lie they were telling him, they were sticking to 100%, thinking there'd be no follow-up questions, thinking that it somehow proved whatever it was that they had done and manipulated, including sending fake websites for me and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to talk to Gareth about that, particularly because he has now moved into a different space. But I didn't get any replies. I don't know, maybe he didn't see them or they didn't, arrive his way. But certainly I think that when I met up with him, my own prejudice came out a bit. Because at one point he started talking about how I would do other things, the fake me. He said, of course, I played beach football for England. And I was like, did you? But then I was like, the hell's beach football? Well, and for England. And then I started thinking, am I judging him because of his family, because of his dad? Am I now not believing him about beach football? Because he'd go, sometimes you'd watch me on Eurosport playing beach football. Again, wasn't me. And he'd say, and I'd maybe score a goal, and you'd text me, and you'd say,
I thought it was a goalie. Anyway, yeah.
He'd be like, whatever it was, he'd do something good. And I'd go, hey, next time, take your shirt off for me and wink at the camera. And I had to remind him again, it wasn't me.
That wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Not there's anything wrong with that.
Was it you, Neil?
No, it wasn't me. We're mocking, let's just say, as we say, we're mocking beach football, right? Okay. But you've got to remember the English have an incredible disadvantage because they have to practice on stones.
Yeah.
So, they're actually really quite good.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't me.
It wasn't me. And I'm not mocking beach football. I think beach football looks like great fun and he seems to be brilliant at it. But I was just like, this all sounds a bit too odd.
Yeah.
But it was me. I thought, I'm judging him on this and that's terrible. I shouldn't do that. So I didn't know what to kind of make of it. And yet everything he said seemed to be borne out by facts. So I wanted to talk to him about that and how maybe he's moved more into a world where facts are more malleable. But I didn't get a reply. And I think that I think he unfollowed me on Twitter when I was quite anti-Brexit. And he wasn't as much. I can't remember. But anyway, But at that stage, I mean, the picture of him with me and Alex Zane holding his Guinness, he's beaming. He's having a great night, and I had a great night with him.
Yeah. When you were telling me this story, I remembered it because I'd tell you how it came about. We're chatting about gigs that we've been to in the past and blah, blah, blah. It turns out that me, Brent, and Gareth were all at the same Reading Festival watching the same punk stage at the same time years and years ago.
All
and
right.
that sparked conversation about...
This is an origin story. You need to what the hell that band was and what on earth they were talking about, or what you all smoked at the same time.
Well, I think it's little of column A, little of column B, and I think it was Millencolin. But off the back of that, we got talking about Idlewild, because I'm a massive fan of Idlewild's second album. And he goes, bloody some bloke pretending to be Danny Wallace. He was. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. He's still furious about it. Not with you, but about the incident.
That's so funny. Someone pretending to be Danny Wallace. So like a random story and a weird set of characters to choose.
Fantastic.
So now, to answer your question in the longest possible way, that was my experience with the Ikes. So it's been funny actually. Yeah, like Alex Jones and an Ike adjacent kind of experience, but one that really confused me because I really didn't know what was true or what wasn't. I didn't know. At some point, I was thinking, is he making this up?
Well, I mean, you've always got to do that when you're talking to an Ike or Alex Jones. Like you've got grain of salt, probably is to be expected.
But he was absolutely being genuine. I think someone was just messing with him in a terrible way.
Oh dear.
Probably his own father.
Yes, but that'd be the ultimate twist.
Wow.
If it was his dad trying to get him to join the family business.
Or if he had a pet lizard. Turned out to be a little gecko.
Yeah. There we go. I'm very conscious of the time, Danny.
No, don't be silly. It's all good. I know that conspiracy podcasts, including your own, you tend not to do them unless they're at least 4 hours long.
Well, that's because you can't shut me up.
You'll have to start working on brevity as an advantage in this world.
Yeah, potentially. This is it. We just, I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions, then, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Did you get to meet Jim Carrey?
I did get to meet Jim Carrey.
What's Jim Carrey like? And just to explain, Danny had a cracking book called Yes Man that was turned into a film with not only Jim Carrey, but Zooey Deschanel was in it as well, wasn't she? And you cameoed in it. I seem to remember you're in a bar, aren't you?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I appear at the end of the film with a very powerful and striking cameo. Man. And
it's like Hitchcock.
Yeah. One of the things I really enjoyed about that was that at one point they filmed me from a different angle, and I had to be talking to this extra, but just mouthing, right? They'd add the sound of the bar afterwards. So there's another character in front of me, and you could just see me, and I'm just talking. And I didn't know what to mouth. I'd never really mouthed before. And so the woman I'm talking to is just like nodding. And so I'm literally just saying things like, but silently, if you took a bicycle pump and you inserted it into a gerbil, you could probably get a gerbil the size of like a netball, or depending if you used elastic bands, you could maybe shape it to make an American football. And I was just doing that because I knew no one could hear me, but I was thinking the deaf community are going to get a lot more out of this. They're going to be like, that guy, he's got a story. All the lip readers are going to be like, what was that about gerbils? And no one would know. And it would be my secret joke with lip readers. And I don't know if that's ever happened. I've never been informed of it. But one of the most exciting things was when Jim Carrey, notice I always say Jim Carrey, I never say Jim. I'll never be one of those people that talk about, Al or Rob.
Oh, yeah.
His name's Robert De Niro. The other one's Al Pacino. So Jim Carrey, I knew that I was going to get to hang out, a reasonable amount on set. And when you watch the end of a Jim Carrey film and you see all the outtakes and you hear the crew laughing and you see him do crazy, I suddenly thought, oh my God, I'm going to see that. I'm going to see that real. And that was more exciting than
Yeah.
the idea of seeing him do the words. And I got to see that. I got to see him every sort of third take do something crazy to the point where he cracked a rib. All he had to do was turn around and knock over a tray of drinks or something. Went fine first time, fine the second time. Third time he thought, I'm going to do something else. And he just went, feet overhead. And he walked around the corner. He had a big bag of ice on his ribs.
Wow.
And I was like, worth it though. And he told me every film he does, he tries to do at least one thing he doesn't know he's going to do. So there's one film, Fun with Dick and Jane, it's called, and he's on the ceiling. He decided, I'm just going to let go. And so he let go and just crashed onto a table and was also severely injured. But
Right.
that commitment to craft, like even for a silly film, but when you see him in the Jim and Andy, is it? What's the
Man on the Moon.
Man on the Moon?
Yeah.
But the subsequent documentary, you see him just in character the whole time and being like the world's worst guy.
Yeah, very much so.
Sort of part of it. I think that's extraordinary. He's incredibly intense. He's quite sensible, but he can become Jim Carrey when you want him to be.
Right, okay.
So he will do nice things as Jim Carrey. He'll see some tourists walking by and realize they're not having a great day. And he'll just run up and just do whatever and then run away again. Like hit and run kindness.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because I had a sneaky suspicion you might be a bit of an arse, but that's really nice.
And like, we go on.
But fair enough. Is your flat still its own country?
Technically, yes.
Is it?
Yeah. It's still its own country. It was the first place I ever got. I decided to turn it into a country. I remember getting the, what are they called, Ordnance Survey round, because I wanted an accurate map of my country. So I got those guys to come around in high vis with lasers. And they measured every wall, but also where the bin was, where the sofa was, so that if you were lost in my flat, you could very easily go to Ordnance Survey and work out where the sofa was. But I remember walking past the flat and seeing that someone was asking for planning permission or something. And somehow there was the outline of the buildings. And then where my flat was, somehow this map had made it onto that. Like they must have loaded it up in order to make something for the show. And it had remained on some version because every other flat was just walls. And then my flat, you could still, on a lamppost, see where the bin was and where the sofa was. And I was like, I was like, I like that, but also that feels like an invitation to burglars. If a burglar is
Yeah, a little bit.
if they're after a bin and a sofa, well,
Fantastic. Oh, that's amazing. One of the things I did want to ask you was, a lot of people might not know you're responsible for quite a lot of the comedy that quite a lot of people grew up with. You, Mighty Boosh, you had Dave Gorman, Ross Noble, things like that. You're a producer. What is it exactly that? How the hell did you get into producing? What is it that a producer does? Because the only time we ever hear about a producer is when they've done something terrible, like Harvey Weinstein or something like that.
It depends what kind of producer you are. You can be a very proactive, creative producer. You can come up with ideas and match the idea with the people that you think will do the idea best. You can listen to people's ideas and then work out the best way to make that idea sellable or broadcastable. Or you can be the type of producer where everyone comes to you and you sign something and then it's done. And I try to be a very sort of proactive producer. One of the reasons I left producing was I kept giving my ideas away to other people. And then I was like, why don't I do some of my ideas? So I decided to do that. But a good producer, and I've worked with lots of them, they can really sort of change things because they're the guiding hand and they support, but they try and bring the best out in people. I remember being told off in my office by another producer because I had two comics in there and we were riffing some ideas and jokes and we were laughing. And the lady burst into my office and went, "Can you just keep the laughter down, please?" And I went, "This is the comedy department. Like, we're doing our job. This means we're doing it well. Do you know what I mean? Silent audience. Not going to be a good show." So I was always amazed at that kind of that difference. It was always very collaborative. And I remember sometimes as a producer, I had a great mentor as well, John Pidgeon, his name was. And I wanted to make the Mighty Boosh. I'd seen the Mighty Boosh doing a show in a room above a pub with sort of 12 other people. Kept an eye on them, went to Edinburgh, all this kind of stuff. I wanted to do something with them. John wanted to do something with them. The BBC told us the Mighty Boosh are 1 million miles away from what we want on Radio 4. And we were like, well, that's ridiculous because they're great and we could do something great.
Yeah.
Or they could do something great. We could support and try and make it into a thing. And so he found some money somewhere and we ended up making it for local radio. And local radio hated it because it was on midday on a Saturday on BBC London. In the sport.
Yeah.
So you had like everyone in their vans kind of going, all right, Millwall today. And then, all right, we're going to take half an hour break from all the football stuff. So you can hear the whimsical thing to Zookeepers. And they hated it. And then Radio 4 played it out. And we started to get complaints because it was all the old generals who used to listen to Radio 4. But then it found an audience and then a younger audience, something Radio 4 needed because otherwise their whole audience was going to die out in 20 years. They loved the Boosh, and then the Boosh became this kind of thing, and then that led to the other stuff, which was incredibly gratifying for the cheapest radio show in the world to be made, thanks to Julian and Noel doing so much extra work and basically making no money from it at all.
Oh, really?
Oh, God, no. There was no money. All the money that they would have earned, they spent on a plane ticket to fly the American Rich Fulcher over, who would play one of the other characters.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
And that was it. I was nicking equipment off the BBC. We recorded it in, not in a studio, but in a disused disco in Shoreditch. At one point, we had to move to the men's toilets because it was slightly more soundproofed. So this was made for £1.
Nice.
But it was all of us mucking about and mucking in. And it was a really great experience. And it's sort of what radio and comedy should be. It felt like a really cool gang just trying to do something. We felt like kids about to go on a grown-up channel. And the grown-ups did not want us. They told us.
Really?
They said, this is 1 million miles away from what we want. But we did it anyway.
Well, yeah. What sort of comedy do you actually like? What's your sort of preference?
I like lots and lots of different types. I think that it's quite nice to have quite a malleable sense of humour in that you can hang out with those Radio 4 people and their wordplay, but you can also hang out with the Boosh and think of surreal stuff and all that. So that's been quite a handy thing. So I like everything from, I have a great admiration for someone like Michael McIntyre, who can take the most mundane situations and within a phrase even discover a little moment that millions of people who aren't even in the room, but who are watching on TV, can immediately identify with and nudge each other and go, that's you, or that's me, or that's us, or that's the world. It's a huge skill.
Oh, very much so.
But I also love very dark comedy. I also love, I'm like anyone. If it's funny.
If it's funny, it's funny, it's funny. Yeah.
There's no one type. I'd never go, although I had a great week 2 weeks ago where I had an email from Harry Hill,
Hmm?
who had only just sort of got to know, but who I've admired since the 90s, which was so lovely and friendly, and invite me to a thing. On the same day, I got a phone call from Tim Vine, who I absolutely love and wish I lived next door to. And the thing I love about both of them is that what they do is so positive. There's never anything negative about what they do. There's no real victim. Often they're the butt of the joke. Often it's just very clever. They're blessed with something really special.
Sometimes it shouldn't even be funny, but it is. We can go to the classic Tim Vine pen behind the ear. Like, that's just the dumbest thing in the world, but it's the best thing in the world.
Pen behind the ear is absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love it. And and I first saw Tim and Harry in the 90s. And Tim, I remember going up to him in a comedy club in Bath, and we sort of got to know each other, made some jokes. And then one day I'm walking through a huge crowd of people at the Edinburgh Festival, huge crowd. And, you've been buffeted left and right. There's a bar over there. And then there's Tim, and he sees me. And then he just puts his phone to his ear, timing it so that as I'm walking past him, he just goes, no, tell him I won't do it for anything less than £400,000. Hello, Danny, you right? And it was great moments of private joke just for me. He thought, I'm going to do something funny just for him.
Marvelous.
And that's a gift that I've never forgotten.
Oh, that's incredible. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a good way to finish it, to be quite honest, Dan, because I've got loads of stuff I'd want to, but I'd keep you for another 2 hours, mate. So,
well, let's do another one sometime.
That'd be fabulous if you'd like to.
But we'll have to work out a way of getting conspiracy into it, because otherwise it'll just be me rabbiting on about old anecdotes.
That's quite all right.
You know what? That's fine by me. But, that's marvelous. But thank you so much for everything today. And what's the name of your book? Don't laughably that we could advertise it more than yourself. But tell people about your book.
It's called Somebody Told Me. And I hope it's like I said, I hope it's accessible. I hope it's one of the nicest things about it was I talked to this one guy whose wife is really deep into the rabbit hole. And everything he told me, it was sort of shocking and tragic and at moments comic. And he said that he nearly didn't speak to me. And then he thought, you know what? If I do speak to him and he writes this chapter the way I hope he'll write it, then one day when she comes out of the rabbit hole, I'll be able to nudge her and say, read this. This chapter is actually about us. And I did try. And I do love you. And I was there. And I just wanted you back. And I hope that moment comes for him. And I think that maybe chimes with some of the people who found your podcast as well. Whether they're people who are, you probably get haters who hate listen because they want to debunk it, or they think Brent sold his soul that day because he had a pizza with me.
The evidence is there. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Or whether it's the people who've maybe temporarily, let's hope, have lost someone who might soon be on their way back. So I wanted it to be a book about the last few years and the next few, and how we can get out of it.
Fantastic.